My name is Martha. I used to think my family was normal. Not perfect, but close enough. A loving son, a kind daughter-in-law, a peaceful home, until one sentence shattered everything. You'll understand when you see the baby. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where it all began. When my son Ethan married Clara, I felt like the luckiest mother alive. She was everything I could have wanted for him. Polite, well-spoken, graceful, the kind of woman who could light up a room without even trying. But the thing about perfect people is they often have the deepest cracks. I first noticed something was wrong 3 months after their wedding. Clara stopped visiting. Ethan said she was tired, busy, working from home, yet whenever I called her, she'd sound distracted, nervous even, as if someone were watching her. I tried not to pry. Newlyweds need space, I told myself. Still, the silence grew louder. Then one afternoon, Ethan came by alone. His face was pale, his voice shaking. "Mom, Clara's pregnant." I froze, happy for a second, then confused. "That's wonderful. But why do you look like that?" He hesitated. "She doesn't want anyone to visit her. Not even me sometimes. She says the pregnancy is complicated and that she needs peace." Peace? From her husband? From me? Something felt off. Weeks passed. Clara's phone went straight to voicemail. Ethan's visits became shorter, his answers sharper. And one day, when I dropped by unannounced, he didn't answer the door. But I saw movement behind the curtains. Someone was home. I knocked again. This time, Clara opened the door, just an inch. Her eyes were red. She looked thinner, weaker. "Oh, Martha, you shouldn't have come." "Clara, what's going on?" "Your family. Let me help." She shook her head slowly. "No, please." "You'll understand when you see the baby," and then she shut the door. Those words haunted me for days. What did she mean? What kind of understanding comes from seeing a baby? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her tone, soft, trembling, almost guilty. I told myself it was pregnancy hormones, but deep down, I knew. There was a secret, and whatever it was tearing my son apart. I decided I had to find out before the baby arrived. The next morning, I drove back to their house. Ethan's car wasn't there, but Clara's was. I waited in my car, watching, heart pounding. After an hour, she stepped out, alone, wearing a long coat despite the heat. She looked around carefully before heading down the street. I followed her, slowly. She turned into a small clinic, not the hospital she'd said she was visiting. The sign read, Riverside Genetic Center. Genetic. I felt cold all over. Was something wrong with the baby? Was she sick? Or was this something darker? That night, when Ethan came by for dinner, I asked directly, "Sweetheart, what's going on with Clara?" "I saw her at a clinic today, a genetic one." He dropped his fork. "You followed her?" I was worried. "Mom, don't. Just don't get involved." Please, his tone, part anger, part fear, terrified me. He left before dessert. I stood at the window long after he'd driven off, the words echoing in my head. "You'll understand when you see the baby." The next day, I received a text from an unknown number. It was Clara. "Martha, please stop asking questions. I promise I'll explain everything soon." Then another message. "The baby isn't what you think." My hands shook. I tried calling her, but she didn't pick up. That night, I dreamed of holding a baby with no face. I woke up crying. I tried to distract myself with gardening, volunteering, anything, but the tension grew. Every week, Ethan became more distant. Clara was a ghost. And then, one rainy evening, there was a knock on my door. I opened it, and there she was, Clara, soaked, trembling, clutching her belly. "Martha, please help me." Rain was pouring so hard that night it felt like the sky was trying to wash away every secret we'd buried. And there she was, Clara, standing on my doorstep, shivering, clutching her stomach. Her coat was soaked through, her hair stuck to her face. But what struck me most was the look in her eyes. Terror. "Martha, please help me," she whispered. I rushed her inside, guiding her to the sofa. "Clara, what happened?" "Where's Ethan?" She didn't answer. She just sat there, staring into the distance. Her hands trembled as she rubbed her belly. "He doesn't know I'm here," she said finally. "He can't know." I fetched her a towel and a blanket. She was freezing. When she finally spoke again, her voice cracked. "I had to leave. They were watching me." I froze. "Who, Clara? Who's watching you?" "The clinic. And someone else. I can't explain everything yet." She turned to me, eyes wide with fear. "But Martha, please, don't tell Ethan. Not until you've seen the baby." There it was again. That sentence. Those haunting words. "You'll understand when you see the baby." I wanted to demand answers, but she was shaking. Her hands gripped her stomach as a wave of pain passed through her. "Clara, you need a hospital." She shook her head. "No! Not there. Not any hospital. They'll take the baby away." The desperation in her voice made me stop. I helped her to the guest room. She fell asleep instantly, murmuring things I couldn't quite understand. Something about tests, matches, donors. That night, I sat outside her door, unable to sleep. By morning, Clara was gone. The bed was cold, the window open, and on the nightstand, a note. It said only, "Forgive me. You'll see soon. Please protect the baby." My heart sank. Protect it from what? Or who? I called Ethan immediately, panicking. "She was here." Clara was here last night. There was silence. Then a long exhale. "Mom, just stay out of this." "Ethan, she's scared." She said someone's after her. "Mom!" His voice broke. "You don't know what's going on. Please, just trust me." Then he hung up. Days turned into weeks. No one heard from Clara. Ethan withdrew even more. He barely ate, barely spoke. The police said she'd left voluntarily, that she might be with relatives. But something in my gut told me this wasn't that simple. So I started digging. I went back to the Riverside Genetics Center pretending to be a patient. Inside, I asked the receptionist about prenatal programs. She looked nervous. "We don't handle normal pregnancies," she said. "Only specialized cases." "What kind of cases?" I pressed. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Surrogacy. DNA modification. Donor programs." I felt the blood drain from my face. That evening, I sat in my kitchen, staring at an old photo of Ethan and Clara on their wedding day. They looked so happy, so innocent. And then I noticed something. In the background, barely visible, was a man I didn't recognize, standing behind them, watching. I zoomed in on his face. He was wearing a staff badge from Riverside Genetics Center. The next morning, I printed the photo and took it to Ethan. "Who is this man?" I asked. He went pale. "Mom, where did you get that?" "From your wedding pictures." "Why is he there?" He sat down, covering his face with his hands. "It's complicated," he whispered. "You wouldn't understand." "Then make me understand, Ethan. What's going on with your wife? And what does that clinic have to do with your baby?" He looked at me, eyes wet, jaw trembling, and said something I'll never forget. "Mom, the baby might not be mine." The world seemed to tilt. "What are you saying?" "Clara couldn't get pregnant. We tried everything. The doctors said it was impossible. Then she found that clinic. She said they could help. Help how? Through a genetic program? They said they'd use my DNA and hers. But when I started asking questions, they stopped talking to me." He rubbed his face, shaking his head. "She said she had to go through it alone. She begged me not to interfere. Then she disappeared." I tried to stay calm. "So, you think the baby isn't yours?" He didn't answer. "You think it belongs to that clinic?" He looked up slowly. I don't know who it belongs to anymore. That night, I sat awake again, thinking about Clara's words. You'll understand when you see the baby. What could she possibly mean? What could a baby show me that words couldn't? And deep down, why did I suddenly feel afraid to find out? 3 months later, a letter arrived. No return address, just my name, Martha, written in Clara's handwriting. Inside was a hospital wristband and a photograph. It was a newborn baby, tiny, peaceful. But there was something off. The baby's eyes were open, and they were a color I'd never seen before. Not blue, not green, something metallic, almost silver. And below the photo, Clara had written, "Now you'll start to understand." I stared at the photograph until my eyes burned. The baby's gaze was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Piercing, almost knowing. And those eyes, silver. My hands trembled as I turned the photo over again. There was a faint mark on the baby's wrist, a printed code, barely visible beneath the hospital tag. Something about it made my stomach twist. Now you'll start to understand. That's what she'd written, but I didn't understand. Not yet. Not at all. The next morning, I went straight to Ethan's house. He opened the door, exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his hair unkempt. "Mom, please, not today." I held up the photo. "You need to see this." He took it and froze. His face turned white. "Where did you get this?" "She sent it. Clara sent it to me." "Ethan, this is your child?" He stared at the photo for a long time. Then he whispered, "That's my ring on her hand." "But I've never seen this baby." "What do you mean?" "She disappeared before the due date. I didn't even know if she'd given birth. She told me not to look for her, said it was safer that way." He sank onto the couch, hands shaking. "Mom, what if they did something to her? What if that clinic—" He couldn't finish the sentence. I decided to visit the clinic again, but this time I wasn't pretending to be a patient. When I walked in, I demanded to see the director. The receptionist hesitated. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I have this." I slid the baby's photo across the counter. Her face drained of color. Without another word, she disappeared into a back room. Minutes later, a tall man in a white coat appeared. His name tag read, Dr. Callum Rayner. "Mrs. Bennett," he said smoothly, "please come with me." He led me down a silent hallway lined with glass doors and humming machines. The air smelled sterile, and something else, faintly metallic. Inside his office, he gestured for me to sit. "You've come about your daughter-in-law," he said before I could speak. "You know her?" He smiled slightly. "We know all our clients, Mrs. Bennett. But some misunderstand the nature of our work." "What kind of work is that? Genetic modification? Surrogacy? What did you do to her baby?" His expression didn't change, but his eyes grew cold. "Mrs. Bennett, your daughter-in-law volunteered for a program to help infertile couples. She signed every consent form. She knew exactly what she was doing. And what was that?" He leaned forward. "Creating the next generation." I felt my heart hammer in my chest. The next generation? Of what? He smiled again, that same calm, clinical smile. "Children born with advanced genetic stability. Enhanced immunity, improved cognition. Our methods are groundbreaking. You experimented on her." He didn't answer. "Where is she now?" "I'm afraid I can't disclose patient locations. But I can assure you, the child is in good health." I stood, shaking. "You listen to me. That's my grandchild, and I'll find both of them no matter what it takes." He didn't stop me from leaving, but as I walked out, I could feel his eyes following me, cold, calculating. That night, I told Ethan everything. He didn't believe me at first. "Mom, that's insane. They wouldn't just experiment on people." "Then why did Clara run? Why are they hiding her?" He didn't answer, but later that week I caught him sneaking out with a duffel bag and a gun. "Ethan! What are you doing?" I'm going to find her. I grabbed his arm. You don't even know where to start. He hesitated, then pulled out a scrap of paper. On it was an address. She sent it to me. Just one line. If anything happens, look for me here. It was in a small town 2 hours away. I didn't let him go alone. We drove through the night. The rain hadn't stopped for days, just like the night Clara appeared at my door. When we finally reached the address, it led us to an old farmhouse surrounded by overgrown grass. There were no lights, no cars, just the sound of wind against the windows. Ethan called out, "Clara, it's me!" No answer. We pushed the door open. The house smelled of dust and old wood. Then, a sound, a soft cry, a baby's cry. Ethan rushed toward it. There in the living room was a cradle. Inside lay the baby from the photograph, tiny, wrapped in a blue blanket. The moment I saw those silver eyes, my knees nearly gave out. They shimmered under the dim light, not natural, not human, but there was something else. A small scar behind the ear, a surgical mark. Ethan lifted the baby, tears in his eyes. "He's beautiful," he whispered. "Clara, where are you?" That's when we heard it, a floorboard creaking upstairs. We rushed up, and there she was, Clara, standing at the top of the stairs, pale and trembling, holding something in her hands. "Clara!" Ethan ran to her, but she stepped back. "No, don't come closer," she said. "They're watching." "Who?" "The clinic?" I asked. She nodded. "They implanted a tracker during one of the checkups. I thought I could escape, but they'll come for him." "For the baby. Then let's go to the police," I said. She shook her head frantically. "You don't understand. The baby isn't just mine or Ethan's. He's theirs too." "What are you saying?" "He carries something inside him. Something they created." Her voice broke. "They said he was part of a study, a hybrid project. I didn't know what that meant until it was too late." Ethan held the baby tighter. "Hybrid? With what?" "Modified DNA," she whispered. "Synthetic strands. They said it would make him stronger, immune to diseases. But there's more. He learns too fast. He remembers faces. Her words cut off as a car engine roared outside. Headlights flashed through the window. "They found us," she said, her voice breaking. Ethan handed me the baby. "Mom, take him." "Go out the back. I'll handle this." "Ethan, no. Please, trust me." He kissed the baby's forehead and ran downstairs. Through the window, I saw 2 black cars pull up. Men in suits stepped out, the same man from the wedding photo among them, Dr. Rayner. I ran to the back door, clutching the baby. Behind me, I heard shouting. Ethan yelling, Clara screaming, doors slamming, then a gunshot. I froze. The baby didn't cry. He just looked up at me with those silver eyes unblinking. Then he smiled. And in that moment, I realized what Clara had meant all along. "You'll understand when you see the baby." I held the baby tightly, his silver eyes staring straight into mine. The world outside was chaos. Shouts, gunshots, the screech of tires on wet pavement. I didn't know if Ethan or Clara were alive, but I couldn't stop. I had to run. I bolted through the back door, heart pounding. Rain lashed my face, soaking me to the bone, but I barely noticed. All I could focus on was the baby in my arms. The baby who wasn't entirely human and yet somehow was so fragile. I ran to my car, fumbling with the keys. The baby cooed softly, but his gaze never left me. It was almost as if he understood exactly what was happening, as if he knew danger before I even did. I started the car and floored it. The black SUVs that had been chasing us screeched behind me, their headlights cutting through the downpour. "Hold on, little one," I whispered. "I'll protect you." No matter what, we drove for hours. Through dark country roads, abandoned streets, and endless rain. I had no plan, no destination, just a desperate need to keep moving. Finally, I found an old abandoned cabin at the edge of the forest. It had a locked gate, a creaky door, and most importantly, walls that could hide us. I carried the baby inside and set him gently on the floor. He looked around, unafraid, his silver eyes gleaming in the dim light. "You're not just a baby, are you?" I whispered. He tilted his head as if acknowledging me, and then, in a way that made my blood run cold, he smiled. A knowing, almost intelligent smile. I spent the night trying to keep him quiet, pacing the cabin like a caged animal. I couldn't stop thinking about Clara's words. He carries something inside him, something they created. What had they done to him? DNA modification? Synthetic genes? Or something worse? I had to know. The next morning, I found a dusty old laptop in the cabin. It still worked. I logged onto it and started searching for Riverside Genetics Center. Anything about experimental programs, hybrid projects, or unauthorized research. What I found made me shiver. Files, documents, videos, all labeled Confidential Human Genetic Enhancement Program. There were photos of babies, dozens of them, all with unusual traits, glowing eyes, early cognitive development, abnormal strength. And then I saw the file with Clara's name. It detailed everything. The baby was part of an experiment called Project Silverline, enhanced memory retention from birth, accelerated learning capacity, genetic markers for extraordinary immunity, and something called cognitive link. The document explained it in scientific jargon, but the implication was horrifying. The baby could connect to human thought patterns, absorb knowledge faster than a normal child, and possibly manipulate perceptions. I slammed the laptop shut. Oh my God, they turned him into something inhuman, I whispered. That afternoon, I heard a sound outside, the crunch of wet leaves under boots. I froze. The baby looked at the door, unafraid. Then he crawled toward me, his tiny hands gripping my jacket, almost as if he were telling me, "It's okay, I can handle this." Before I could react, the door burst open. Dr. Rayner and two men in suits stormed in. "Mrs. Bennett," he said calmly, "hand over the child." "He belongs to the program now, never," I yelled. I picked up the baby, backing toward the window. The men advanced. I had nowhere to go. And then, something incredible happened. The baby's eyes flashed silver, brighter, almost blinding. The men froze mid-step, their bodies stiffening. I watched in disbelief as they staggered, fell, and scrambled backward, unable to move properly. He did that?" I whispered. The baby looked at me and smiled again. It was the same knowing smile from the night we first escaped. I realized with a mix of awe and terror that Clara had been right. You'll understand when you see the baby. This child was not just a baby. He was powerful. I knew we couldn't stay. I grabbed my coat, bundled the baby against my chest, and ran into the forest behind the cabin. For hours we ran, hiding under trees, ducking into shadows, avoiding roads. By the time night fell, we had reached a small village miles away. No lights, no signs of life. I found a quiet house at the edge of town. Empty. For the first time, I let the baby down. He crawled around, exploring, his silver eyes scanning every corner. And then, he looked at me again. This time, he reached for my hand. And in that moment, I felt something. Not fear, not dread, but connection. The bond was instant, like he knew I was there to protect him. That night, I sat with him in my lap, rocking him gently. "You're extraordinary, little one," I whispered, "and I promise, no one will ever hurt you again." But even as I said it, I knew the nightmare wasn't over, because the world that had created him would never stop looking. And somewhere deep inside me, a chill ran down my spine. I didn't just have a baby to protect. I had something that the world wanted, something that could change everything, something that was dangerous. The forest was silent that night. Just me, the baby, and the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I had no idea who could be trusted, or if we were already being watched. But as I held him close, I felt a strange sense of calm. Silver eyes staring into mine, almost as if he were telling me, "I'm okay. We can face this together." The next morning, I knew I had to find Clara. She was the only one who could explain everything. I traced a few clues she had left behind: scraps of paper, a journal, and a hidden USB drive. Inside the USB were messages, pictures, and video recordings. The first video was from Clara herself. She was pale, tired, her voice trembling, but her eyes were fierce. "Martha, if you're watching this, it means you found him," she began. "I need you to understand. He's not just a baby, he's the culmination of something dangerous. Project Silverline was supposed to create a perfect child, but they went too far." I watched, frozen, as she held the baby in her arms. "The child has inherited my husband's DNA, Ethan's. But they added something else, something artificial, something that could make him powerful. Too powerful." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" "Clara, what did they do?" I whispered, as if the baby could hear me. In the next video, Clara explained, "The clinic had implanted synthetic cognitive enhancers in the baby. The enhancements allowed the baby to perceive patterns, read intentions, and react before threats happen. But the clinic had another agenda: to track, control, and weaponize him if they could. Martha, protect him. No one can know. Not even Ethan fully. You are his only safe place now." She paused. "And one more thing. The ultimate truth. He is not entirely human, but he is perfect in ways we could never imagine. You'll see soon." The screen went black. I felt a shiver crawl down my spine. I looked at the baby in my arms. He blinked slowly at me, silver eyes glinting in the morning sun. And then, something impossible happened. He spoke. Not words, but thoughts. Clear, precise, inside my mind. "I'm okay. I know who you are. We're safe." For now, I gasped, holding him closer. You can talk?" I whispered aloud. "Not like you. But I understand everything that's happening. We need to move. They're coming." No sooner had he spoken than I heard the roar of engines outside. The black SUV's Dr. Rayner, the men from the clinic. I grabbed the baby, my mind racing. I ran toward the forest, zigzagging, hiding behind trees, pushing the limits of exhaustion. But this time, the baby wasn't just a passenger. He guided me. He pointed me toward safe paths, sensing danger before it appeared. "This way," he thought. I followed, and then we reached it. An abandoned research facility hidden in the hills. I recognized the logo faintly carved into the rusted gate: Riverside Genetic Center. "Why here?" I whispered. "It's safe." For now inside, the building was abandoned. The monitors flickered, papers strewn about, machines rusting. But I felt the air hum with residual energy, and then I saw it. A secret lab, papers, files, and a strange chamber. On the wall, in bold letters, were words that made my blood run cold. Project Silverline, Children of the Future inside the chamber. A single crib, empty. And then, a recording started. Dr. Rayner appeared on the screen. "So, you found him." "Clever, Mrs. Bennett. But he belongs to the program now," he smirked. "You can run, hide, or try to protect him. But the child will choose. And when he does, there is nothing you can do to stop him." I held the baby tighter, and then he looked up at me, silver eyes gleaming. "I choose you. Not them, not him, only you, Martha." A wave of relief washed over me. He wasn't just a child. He wasn't just a weapon. He was mine to protect. And I realized something terrifying and exhilarating. He understood the world in ways no one else could. He knew what was coming, and together we could face anything. That night, I sat by a small fire in the abandoned facility, holding him close. The world outside was dangerous. The clinic would come for him, but for the first time, I felt hope. "You'll understand when you see the baby," Clara had said. And now I did. He wasn't just a baby. He was a miracle, a warning, and a force beyond imagination. I whispered to him softly, "I promise, I'll keep you safe. No one will ever take you from me," he cooed, almost as if he understood every word. And in that moment, I knew. This was only the beginning. If you want to hear more of my life, the adventures, the secrets, and the mysteries I uncover, subscribe to my channel, Diary of Miss Martha, and comment below your thoughts, because with this baby, nothing will ever be the same.